All right, at this time, we'll call to order the City of Kenai Planning and Zoning Commission meeting for June 14th, 2023. Will you stand for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Item A2, roll call, please.
Chair Tweet,
Here.
Vice Chair Halstead,
Here.
Commissioner Glendenning,
Here.
Commissioner Greenberg,
Here.
Commissioner Woodard. Here. Commissioner Costin.
Here.
Commissioner Fikes. Here. You have a quorum.
All right, thank you. Item A3, the agenda approval. Before we do that, make note of the lay-down items added to item 1.3, City Administration Report on 2022 Conditional Use Permit Annual Report Review, and item 02, informational items, King of the River Food Drive Flyer. With that, can I get a, oh. Yep, that's what I'm gonna do, yep. All right, with that, I would like a motion for the agenda and the consent agenda.
Would you like them for both? Can we move on both items?
We've changed it up on ourselves.
Woo! I move we approve the consent agenda and the agenda with lay down.
All right, do we have a second?
I'll second.
All right, would the clerk please read the consent agenda items into the record?
You have approval of minutes, regular meeting of May 24th, 2023. New business action approval requesting an excuse absence for the May 24th, 2023 regular meeting from Commissioner Costin. And new business action approval, time extension for compliance with the conditions in resolutions PZ 2022-14 for a restaurant brewery on the property located at 800 Childs Avenue, parcel ID 049011138 in the heavy industrial IH zoning district. And that is your consent agenda.
There we go. Are there any public comments or on any of the consent agenda items just read by the clerk? All right, seeing none, is there any objections to approving the agenda and the consent agenda? Seeing none, they both are approved. And now we will move along. Item C, scheduled public comment. We have none. Item D, unscheduled public comment. Is there anyone in the public or online that would like to speak to any item that is not on the agenda tonight? Yep, if you could. Name and whether you're a resident of Kenai. There you go. With the red light on, you're on. There you go.
My name is Will Jerrig, and the approval you just did on the one piece is for the brewery. I just wanted to give a quick update. McGlasson's is bringing equipment in this weekend to start removal of trees, stumps, separating out topsoils off the side to keep for rejuvenating the landscaping after it's been built, and they're planning on starting this year. We're having rock brought in for our property, which is the third lot down by the river, and we're going to start putting the riprap in to protect our front of our property right on the river. So there's going to be some other activity down there with a lot of equipment. Just wanted to let you know that things are moving along a little bit, and not as fast as we thought we would, but we're going to probably start building next year is our plan. But we're going to protect our bank first, and so just let you know, and if there's any questions, I'd be happy to answer any.
Anybody have any questions? Commissioner Glendenning? Yeah, okay. Yeah,
All
I'll
right.
tell you what, maybe slower than you expected, but a little quicker, I think, than the city expected to see all that activity down there, so good to see.
Some new facelifts.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. All right, anyone else? All right, seeing none, we'll move on then to item E, consideration of plats. We have one tonight, maybe I'm lying, maybe there's two. Anyone, we have E1, Resolution PZ 2023-10, recommending approval for a preliminary plat for the Rutov subdivision to subdivide a parcel into 4 lots located at 106 Lawton Drive. Kenai parcel ID number 049-02008 in the suburban residential zoning district. Can I get a motion, please? Vice Chair Halsted.
I move we approve Resolution PZ 2023-10, preliminary plat for Rutenhoff's subdivision.
All right, do we have a second?
I'll second.
Second. All right, staff report.
Thank you, Chair Twait, Planning Commissioners, and members of the public. Before you is a plat for a 4-lot subdivision for a parcel located at 106 Lawton Drive. As you can see in the aerial, that's the parcel as is, as a standalone right now. It's currently vacant in the suburban residential, as well as the land use designation is suburban residential as well. Proposed use is multifamily. Right now, we did receive a building permit for a triplex in one of the lots. So this will be a 4-lot subdivision. On average, these lots will range between 0.20 to 0.29 acre per lot. It comes down to, if I'm reading my staff report correctly, down to about 8,755 square feet up to 12,937 square feet. So surrounding uses are vacant to the north, south, and east, and to the west you have those 2 single-family dwellings. Next slide. So this is the preliminary plat that was submitted to staff. As you can see, you can go to the next slide. It zooms in a little bit more so you can see there are 2 flag lots. So lot 1, 2, 3, and 4. Flag lots are allowed according to the borough standard. I did make sure I called. It's just if it's a flag lot, it has to be a minimum of 20 feet in width, and it can't exceed a certain distance in length. So it meets those standards. A condition that staff did require or to note on the plat that access portion of the flat lot is to remain unobstructed for emergency vehicle access as well. And that's also a standard that the borough already has in place, but I wanted to make sure that that was clear when this plat is recorded. So in reviewing the subdivision regulations, this does meet the minimum lot size, minimum lot width, according to Kenai's code, and in addition to development standards. When it comes to these lots for up to 3 dwelling units, the lot only needs to be 7,200 square feet. So as mentioned before, these lots, the minimum is about 8,755. So with that being said, staff finds that the proposed preliminary plat meets the general standards as found in the subdivision regulations, as well as the development requirement tables, and here recommend approval of this resolution to the Kenai Peninsula Borough, subject to the following conditions listed in the resolution. This concludes staff's presentation. Happy to answer any questions you have.
All right, we don't, not a public hearing, so we need to. Okay. All right, so we have a motion on the floor. Any discussion? Vice Chair Halsted.
On page 17 of our packet, you show that laydown with the 4 lots in it. Is that road, I don't think they're under any obligation to do it, but just curious, would that be a paved road or a road that would be maintained by city in any way, shape, or form? If they're trying to egress into 4 houses, would they need anything like that?
So are you talking about the actual flag area of those lots, or are you talking about?
Maybe I'm misunderstanding. Is this 4 different?
The 40 feet, I think, is what you're referencing.
Okay, because they're basically driveways, right? As far as I'm seeing it, they're not actually
But
roads.
is it merged? Isn't
No.
it like one big road? Oh,
It's
okay.
just 20 feet on either side of the property, of that.
Okay, all right. That explains, or that helps me understand that better. I was thinking like one kind of road that would.
Gotcha, no.
Okay, thank you.
Any other discussion? Commissioner
Just
Fikes?
along those lines, I would hope that the builder would take into consideration the turnaround apparatus of any kind of delivery vehicle, emergency vehicle. As they develop that into a triplex and you got a 20-foot vehicle and then somebody pulls in with a snow machine trailer, I mean, access is gonna be considerably restricted. I've been on these flag lots in the city, and they are highly undesirable. I understand that they're in code, but they are troublesome and burdensome to locate and find, so, again, I would hope that somebody would put some thought into it when they design and build that triplex on how they're gonna access those units. How they're even gonna mark them from the street, too. That's an issue. That's my only concern with the flag lot.
Ms. Mitchell?
Thank you for bringing that up, Commissioner Fikes. Staff did actually have a pre-application with this applicant, with the building official as well as the fire marshal. We did discourage the applicant from this flag lot for concerns that you've addressed with the fire turnaround, and potentially addressing Vice Chair's question in terms of this driveway. They potentially might pursue a shared driveway so that they could potentially have maybe a hammerhead turnaround, but they will meet the requirements of fire for the apparatus. We're not sure what that looks like until they develop another triplex at the end, and that will determine what kind of access or driveway, how wide we would require them to be.
And as a follow-up, would that be, as Halsted brought up, a requirement of possibly further development to something beyond a gravel or dirt pad to assist in the access? Because as you can see on some of the streets and stuff in the neighborhoods, they're not all paved, and again, a driveway, I know that's gonna be the development of the builder, but again, if you're gonna leave it dirt, and you're gonna have dirt runoff and snow and just a bunch of potholes, pretty soon you're gonna have an issue. So if this is something we could head off at the beginning, I don't know if those are requirements or any add-ons that we could put in there.
Ms. Mitchell?
Thank you, Commissioner Fikes. So we do have in policy when it comes to driveways that it should be engineered. I can't say that that has been enforced in the past consistently, but that is the direction that administration is moving towards.
Commissioner Greenberg?
Yeah, I was just looking at the plat on page 17, and it looks a little bit different than what's on there. Is it more current in the packet than what we see there? If you look, it has the 40-foot right-of-way dedication. It shows the section line easement in the right-of-way on page 17.
So what's in the packet is probably more accurate because that 40-foot section line was always dedicated in a recorded deed decades ago, and so they're just showing it on the plat now. So what you see in the packet is the most accurate.
Okay, then, yeah, it might be, I don't know that it's needed to have the section line easement anymore if it gets dedicated to a right-of-way, so they might be able to remove that. And then, is that all? I think that has something else. No, it's just that. Thanks.
Anyone else? I don't remember seeing this, but I would assume there's one water and sewer service out off of Lawton for that parcel. Are they going to have to bring in 3 more new ones for each individually, for each of those parcels?
Thank you, Chair Twait, for that question. Yes, because these are going to be separate lots, and this is why you can see the utility easements to the west and east are a little bit wider than your standard 10 to ensure that proper lines are going through crossing property lines.
All right, thank you. Anyone else? All right, please call the roll.
Commissioner Fikes?
Yes?
Commissioner Glendenning?
Yes.
Commissioner Woodard?
Yes.
Chair Twait?
Yes.
Commissioner Greenberg?
Yes.
Vice Chair Halsted?
Yes.
Commissioner Costin?
Yes.
Motion passes.
All right, thank you. Item F1 under public hearings, Resolution PZ 2023-09, granting a conditional use permit to allow for lodging on the property located at 1534 Stellar Drive, Kenai parcel ID 047-14032 in the suburban residential zoning district. Can I get a motion, please? Vice Chair Halsted.
I move we approve Resolution PZ 2023-09, conditional use permit for lodging.
And a second?
Second.
Second? All right, staff report.
Thank you, Chair Twait and Commissioners and member of the public. Before you is a CUP for lodging, and I just do want to point out, I will be using the term lodging to be consistent with our code because we don't have a definition of short-term rentals. In essence, a lodging is when you're renting it out for short term with, I believe, 5 or fewer bedrooms is what it comes down to. So in this case, this is a 3-bedroom home with, or 5 or few guest rooms is the correct term. And just to bring everyone to awareness, once you exceed that 5 or more guest rooms, it's considered a hotel motel. So I just want to kind of be clear on the terms and consistency with our code. With that being said, this is a CUP for lodging at 1534 Stellar Drive, which is in the suburban residential zone, as well as the land use designation is the same on a lot size of approximately 15,000 square feet. Every property surrounding it is all single-family dwelling units. So I want to give a little bit of background on how this application came about. Is the homeowner came in and had a question about parking and shared that she was doing a short-term rental. And then I asked her, did you obtain a CUP? She said no, she wasn't aware of the process. So I told her that there is a process when we come to this, and she applied immediately for this. So she wasn't aware of this requirement. So I want to be clear, while they've been operating for a few years, it was just brought to your attention of the CUP when it comes to lodging. Next slide. So this is just an as-built certification for the lot, just to kind of give you context of the building in the lot itself. As mentioned in the staff report, since she's acquired the property, they've done renovations as well as replacing the fencing. I've actually got a tour of it as well, and I'm grateful for that. It just gives me a first-hand sight of the neighborhood, and it appears that the property owner has a really good relationship with the neighbors, and she does make contact with them. So, as well as typical, and next slide, please. And this is just the floor plan layout. So she is giving you everything, the site plan, the floor plan, giving you a really true perspective of what's going on in this property. Next slide. So as with any CUP, there are 6 criteria that needs to be met. Residential suburban are typically a little bit more medium density. And with that being said, this is a single family residence. It has been used up until the owner decided to kind of change it to lodging the last few years. And there has been no records of complaint or violations of this use. So it is consistent with the zoning. Criteria 2, economic and non-economic value of the adjoining property. It's really hard to tell, but to be honest with you, just what she shared and what I've seen out there, the improvements to the property, I do see what has been done there, and I do see the value in that, because I've seen old photos of the previous chain link fence, and it was really maintained when I was out there. So I can see the value to the neighborhood, and sure, what is the impact to the adjoining neighborhood when you have lodging. As you can see from the site plan earlier, this house is situated closer to the property line, the front property line, and you have all this space towards the backyard, and it also has a fencing to address maybe some buffer of screening as well as noise. Criteria 3, proposed uses in harmony comprehensive plan. As noted earlier, it's suburban residential. So it's intended that potentially this lot could have more units than a single family. So the single family home being used for lodging, it's really, staff does not find that additional conditions are required to mitigate any impact, considering that it's been operating for the last few years without any issues. Criteria 4, public service and facilities are adequate to serve. It's on sewer and water, so no issues there. Criteria 5, proposed use will not be harmful to the public safety, health, or welfare. Staff doesn't find that there's any issues with this. It's a low scale. It's my understanding it's just rented out to a family at a time. It's not like individual rooms or family. So, even though it is lodging in a single family home with no history of complaints, staff doesn't see that there's an issue of public safety or health or welfare. And 6 is a catch-all if staff finds any condition that can't be met or added on to mitigate criteria 1 to 5. Staff doesn't see the need to add any conditions since criteria 1 and 5 are met. Next slide. Therefore, staff is recommending that your commission adopt the resolution approving the CUP for lodging at 1534 Stellar Drive, subject to the listed conditions of approval. And I do want to point out that I added the quiet hours as in the previous lodging for consistency. While that was not noted in the staff report, my apologies, but it is in the resolution. Staff, that concludes staff's presentation. Happy to answer any questions.
All right, thank you. At this time, I'm assuming you're the applicant. If you want to come forward and have anything else to add, if not, maybe we'll just, I might have a question for you and bring you up. Okay. Okay, yep. All right, well, I'll open it up for public testimony. Anyone else wishing to testify to PZ 2023-09? Okay, I don't see any. Now, any commissioners going to want questions answered from the applicant? Okay, all right. Well, then, if no one else from the public wants to testify, we'll close the public hearing, bring it back to the commission. Commissioner Glendenning.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman Twait. Yeah, I note with interest that in our packet there is a license, business license from the state of Alaska. It's been in effect for some time, and that indicates a good faith effort on the part of the applicant. And I'm familiar with the area, and I've driven through there, and it was unnoticed that anything was really, really different. It's just once in a while, someone comes in with a question, and they have to maybe come up with another layer of compliance, and I think that's just a good faith effort on everybody's part, and I will be approving this. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Anyone else? Commissioner Fikes?
Yeah, I just share the same thoughts as Commissioner Glendenning. How nice that somebody didn't kick and scream at the insistence of a new compliance. So it's refreshing to hear the input and the letter that you extensively wrote. So I do appreciate that input. Thank you.
Anyone else? Maybe a question, you can just nod if you are, but you also have, you're collecting taxes for the borough, sales tax on this venture or not?
I actually am not, but I'm paying sales tax.
Okay.
I'm not charging the.
Okay, but you're still,
Yeah.
it's getting handled that way, okay. Great, all right, thank you.
And I always have been there.
Great. Yeah, and I would just say, I'm sure this is one of many that are in the city that are doing exactly that. I know about 3 or 4 right now that I think probably are in that same position that haven't come down here to grace the doorways yet, but probably should, so.
I would like to add that I apologize for not being aware of that, so
Otherwise,
I would have.
I'll tell you what, I'm gonna have, just, now that you're talking, we're gonna make you get up here, so, just so we can record it better, so just turn the microphone on, and then just go ahead, if you could, just state your name for the record.
Mary Kennedy.
All right, so go
I
ahead.
just want to say that I apologize for not being aware of it, and I'm happy that Linda helped me because I came in and she was very nice to me and helped me through the process, so thank you.
Well, if you have a secret society of people out there that are doing that, make sure and let them know to come in here and,
Actually, there's probably a lot of people that either aren't aware of it or haven't done something about it, but I will mention it from now on, so.
yeah, like I said, I don't think it's malicious on anyone's point. I think they just
Correct.
they're just unaware, so.
And it's actually, I think it's a benefit to our community because I've gotten to know all of the neighbors and everybody's been fine with it, so
Yep,
it's
good.
a good thing.
All right.
Thank you.
Commissioner Fikes, oh, see,
Since you're here, do you, can I pick your brain a little bit? Do you advertise by chance, like through
No.
Airbnb, or is it
Well,
just?
I'm registered on Airbnb and VRBO,
Okay.
but I don't advertise. I actually don't need to, so, I mean, that's why I'm registered on there so that I don't have to do that.
Okay, yeah, I was just curious.
Okay.
Commissioner Woodard.
I guess I'm a little curious about what the issue with parking was in the first place.
Well, I'm going to try and make it short. Last summer, I had a group that reserved for 2 nights, and they let me know ahead of time that there were gonna be a couple travel trailers. I'm in a cul-de-sac in that neighborhood. And I went to all my neighbors that I've met before and made them aware of it and told them that they were gonna be there for 2 nights, and if they had any problem to let me know. And none of them did. They said it was fine. And I even went over there the first night they were there just to check on everything, because I didn't want them to be a bunch of loud partiers. And it was just a family reunion and older folks with a couple younger people, and it was real quiet, so. But I wanted to make sure, because I don't want to be that neighbor that has to listen to that going on, so keeping an eye on it.
Vice Chair Halsted.
I was saving this because I didn't want to have you come up, but,
Go ahead.
so you've been running this for several years, and have you been fairly busy, or has it been occupied when you're wanting it to be occupied?
I'm booked up solid.
Okay, so,
I did the first 2 years long-term renting, and then I changed it to Airbnb and VRBO. And
okay. Yeah, there's a pretty big stigma when everyone applies for something that there's going to be, rowdy parties and people tearing up the roads and making a lot of noise. So it's nice to hear that there's.
well, I also have a security camera on the front door, and I let everyone know that there is one there, and I think that kind of helps. I also have a very friendly neighbor that says if he sees anything going on, is it okay if he calls me? And I say, here's my cell phone. So we don't want to spy on them. We want them to be welcome and comfortable, but I also want to be aware if something's going on, so.
I think that's great that, well managed, it can be
Thank you.
a very nice add-on to our.
It's actually fun. I like it.
Excellent, thank you.
One more
Commissioner
question,
Fikes.
just curious. Have you had any issues with your homeowner's insurance or any claims or anything from
No.
the company?
None.
None, okay.
All right. I think you can sit down now.
Okay, thank
All
you.
right. And I assume we've exhausted all of our discussions. All right, I think we're ready to call the roll.
Commissioner Glendenning,
Yes.
Commissioner Woodard,
Yes.
Commissioner Greenberg,
Enough?
Commissioner Fikes,
Yes.
Chair Twait,
Yes.
Vice Chair Halsted,
Yes.
Commissioner Costin,
Yes.
motion passes.
All right, and as you're probably aware, a 15-day appeal period starting now. If nobody files an appeal in the next 15 days, then you get your permit. Thank you. Thank you very much. Move on here. Unfinished business, I don't believe we had any. Or no, unscheduled, where am I at here now? I did lose my spot. Here we go, yes, unfinished business, none. And new business was handled by consent agenda, so that will take us to reports. Item 10, and I'm losing my mind today.
Do you want me just to take it from
Yeah,
here?
just take it from there. Let me find this thing. I lost my paper. There we go. I1 reports. Council member Naxted. Go.
The cheat sheets help,
I
but
should-
sometimes,
No, I shouldn't read that.
I'll go over the report briefly. We had council had a meeting on June 7th, and there's a few things we did and a few things we didn't do. And I won't talk about some of the other stuff unless you want to, because you've got it in front of you there. But I guess the two more important things we did is we did approve the budget for the next fiscal year. That's complete, and also we approved the mill rate, and that hasn't changed in 10 years. And I think before 10 years ago, it actually had dropped, and I don't know how long it was, whatever it was before that. So that's projected to stay the same, and so that was completed. Something we didn't do. We did. We postponed some street projects, some contracts. There was 3 projects that kind of listed under 7, 8, and 9 there, I think, under new business. And I think the bids came in a little higher than expected. I think administration needed a little more time to review and discuss and decide what to do. And that will be coming back at our next council meeting as an ordinance, which means that we'll be appropriating more money, perhaps, to complete these projects or get them underway. So stay tuned on that on your next report. And then I guess lastly, we decided not to extend Divining Point's their marketing service for an extended year. They had a contract with a 1-year extension, and well, we didn't get that far. They actually declined to continue. It was something that was postponed also from before. And, but I think, well, what's going to happen with that is it used to be always the Chamber of Commerce that did that sort of marketing. And that had changed a little while ago for various reasons, so we went outside for an RFP and had a consultant doing it. Now, I think it's going to be going back to the Chamber, so the administration is going to be working with the Chamber on how that might look and whatnot, and I suspect that'll come back to council. But that is all I have really to report. Do you have any questions of me on this or anything else?
Any questions? All right,
They're going to be easy.
that is easy. All right.
Chair Dwight?
I2 Borough, oh, Commissioner, or Vice Chair Halsted.
Just point of order, do we skip the time extension for the conditional use permit, or was that an informational item?
It was approved on the consent agenda.
Oh, okay, sorry.
Yep.
All right.
I'm glad I'm not the only one confused. All right, now item I2, Borough Planning, Commissioner Fikes.
Alrighty, we had a borough meeting on Monday, the 12th, and we heard 5 plats, and we granted approval for 5. And let's see. New business, we had a easement, section line easement along the Sterling Highway in the Anchor Point area. And that was submitted by Emmett and Mary Trimble, and I'm pausing because I don't think there's any issues on that. That one was ultimately approved, no discussion really. The next one was a conditional land use permit, materials extraction and processing. That was by QAP. There was some discussion on that, and that was the whether they were going to be processing hours for that area. There was 3 homes impacted by that, and so there was confirmation from QAP at the testifying applicant that the hours would not be rock crushing, but it was disclosed that processing actually does include rock crushing, so there was a little bit of discussion on that. And that one was ultimately approved, and then we went to another conditional use permit for material extractions, and that one was also by QAP in the Cooper's Landing area. And that one, there was no issues on. Milepost 53, there was a little bit of discussion on the Hall Road and how that might look. And again, ultimately it was approved. And then that brought us to, oh yeah, FEMA. FEMA wanted to give us a nice update on the impacts of the study for the flood zones that they're doing in our area, and the upcoming open house meeting is going to be at the River Center. I believe it was on the 22nd. Yes, June 22nd at 5:30. And it's kind of a floating schedule is how he said it. They will open the doors and answer questions at each one of the little designated tables. And so the driver behind this, I'm going to guess, is FEMA wants to fill their pockets with some more money, and FEMA is the only one that's representing the insurance that they're offering. It's not on the private market. It's insurance that's going to be required by your mortgage if you still own mortgage. If you own free and outright, then you won't have to worry, and it's not by your lot, it is by your structure. So if you have a smokehouse, an outhouse, or a doghouse, you could be paying on those potentially if you are now in the impact area. So there was a whole lot of questions, but not very many answers by FEMA. So I would strongly encourage you to attend that meeting because that could be very insightful. They were less than forthright on wanting to offer up anything in their hotel room in Seattle over the phone and breaking up on the testimony. So the back and forth questions weren't really working. So that was my takeaway from that on their data that was offered up from 2008, 18 years ago, 2 earthquakes and many floods later. They assured us that it was accurate and up to date and current. But that was what they were utilizing their studies on. So again, yeah, not too impressed there, but that was my takeaway. And then after that, we had some discussion on the director's comments. There was some talk again about changes brought forth by the Borough Assembly to match their 9 seats to the Planning and Zoning Commission's 11 seats. We were at 14 and they reduced it down to 11. And they would like to reduce it down once again to 9 seats. So they would like to do it immediately, and I say immediately, before the end of June, as we all assemble again. It's before the assembly for final ratification and approval, and then there will be 3 members that will be exiting, and we will be immediately down to 9 by July 1st, I think is how it was presented. So that was how we had a little bit of discussion on that, and then we wrapped things up.
I didn't even have to see it. I knew Jim was gonna have a question regarding that. Go ahead.
Yeah, the net effect regarding the city of Kenai is that we will still have a dedicated representative, correct?
The way it was told to me was that the cities will have a dedicated seat at the table representing Soldotna, Kenai,
Seward, Homer?
Seward. No, Homer was not in the discussion as far as I heard.
That's okay.
And then, again, there was a lot of discussion. It was the Anchor Point, the Nikiski gentleman, K Beach. There's 2 folks on K Beach that were going to be sidelined. And so the dedicated cities would always have a seat at the table and a voice per se. The assembly assured us that we all are representing the entire borough, even though we may not reside in those areas or have any knowledge of those areas. Their idea was that you would still have a voice. But moving forward with this plan, they will still allow you to have representation at the cities, but the outlying areas could be subject to a round-robin rotation type thing. And that was, but I mean, the speed of it was just wild. It was like, yeah, this is what we're proposing, this is what we passed, and hey, guess what's happening July 1st? So that was my takeaway. It was represented by Tyson Cox, I guess, yeah.
Yeah, just a comment. We've been through this before, and at least the courtesy was extended to planning and zoning and the council, and we had discussions with our city attorney, city manager, and I believe actually we had a resolution supporting the idea that the first-class home rule cities should be represented. It's by census area, I believe, the apportionment for cities, and it's based on population. Okay, so if you want to just get really pure with it, we're entitled to at least 1.5 representatives, but at least we will have a seat at the table, and for my part, I'm glad of that. It could have been a lot worse. I've seen just horrible versions of this, but I have a question for staff. Was any inkling of this did you know about it at all, or just out of the blue for this reapportionment of the Planning Commission for the borough?
Ms. Mitchell.
Thank you, Chair Toy. Thank you, Commissioner Glendenning. I wasn't aware of it, but it was on the radar of our city attorney, Scott Bloom, and he had a memo before council's meeting, but unfortunately, my understanding was the assembly already moved forward with it, so it was kind of mute for him to even discuss it at council meeting, but it was on his radar.
Yeah, the words rude and arrogant come, but I won't apply it anywhere, so I'll just turn off my microphone. Thank you.
Just to kind of frame it into context, so I understand what you're saying as far as is Kenai still going to have a voice. I feel very confident Kenai and at least Soldotna is. It's just odd to me in less than 12 months. This is the 3rd time this has come around, and the 3rd time it's been done like overnight in a secret room type feeling. And so for that, it kind of, sets badly with folks. But we've had material site extractions and conditional use permits come before us that we've almost had to go into executive session and discussions on, is they're a contentious issue, you know, not in my backyard kind of thing, and, you know, I understand you want to develop your land and resources. And so there's a lot of input, and so as we reduce a commission down from 14 to 11 to 9, and somebody's absent or something, I get scared that, you know, somebody, it's not so much a voice, but how much input are you gonna have from a contractor or somebody else who's skilled or trained who's been present for the last year, 2 years, 3 years, and now you've just cast their experience and their skill set to the side, and it's feeling a whole lot like a rubber stamp, but again, I don't know how much that was heard, but I definitely tried to echo those sentiments, because there's a lot of experience. I mean, Blair Martin is one of the ones that's gonna be impacted, and that gentleman served on the commission for 20 years. Yeah, yeah.
Just one question. You say our attorney, Scott Bloom, was aware of it. Perhaps he did have a sideboard conversation with the borough attorney over there? I would hope, anyway. Or were we not in the loop at all from the borough?
Ms. Mitchell?
Thank you, Chair Tway and Commissioner Glendenning. Unfortunately, I can't speak on that because I'm not sure what conversation were had between Scott Bloom and Kenai Borough. So I can follow up with Scott and let you know.
Would you please?
Yes, happy to do so.
So, not to beat this to death, but so I'm curious, so is the objective fiscally the deal, or you don't have a problem filling the seats, right? I mean, there's people.
No, there's no difficulty filling the seats. I think there was one gentleman in the Nikiski area where we went, or excuse me, not Nikiski, the Ridgeway seat that went almost a year and a half before anybody was there to represent it. But no, as far as I know, they've never had an issue with trying to fill the seats. And the sidebar discussion that I heard was it was absolutely fiscal, and here's a little pot of money that we can start grabbing from. So they were going to save $40,000, I guess, is what they're saying.
You guys get paid pretty good over there for that, huh?
Well, you got to figure you got people traveling. It's all the traveling expense. So if you have folks coming in from Seward, you had somebody coming in from Soldovia, you're paying for, you know, a night in a hotel or whatever. It's twice a month kind of thing. Or if you're paying for travel expenses for, what am I trying to say, mileage. I mean, it's not a lot at the end of the day, but yeah, it just was.
Yeah,
I just worry when there's some important things with the, you know, development on the peninsula as we move forward. I would just like to see a larger body with a larger conversation for discussion. When you start reducing it for the size of our borough and our area, that just makes me nervous, so.
Yeah, and I agree, it's nice that we have representation, but then really, the people that need it the most are the ones that aren't in the city, that are out in that area by themselves, that are the ones that really need to have somebody representing them, so, I don't know. All right, any other questions of Commissioner Fikes? All right, then we will move on to I3 Administration, Planning Director Mitchell.
Thank you, Chair Twait. So before I dive into the laydown item, I just wanted to go over and inform everyone that the Storefront Streetscape Improvement Grant has been out since last week. Applications are due this Friday by 5 p.m. I've received 2 thus far, and once the start of next week, I'll be reviewing it since I am the program administrator for this. It will be a very quick turnaround. Just for those of you who don't know kind of what the process is like, the first part is just the application, kind of sharing what your proposed project is. It's no bids yet because we want to make sure we're going to approve it first before you go out and get bids, you know, if you're relying on the grant. So as long as they're in an eligible location, eligible project, they will get approved and we'll just divvy up the funds accordingly. So there's just no rating system so ours is a little different. So that will be hopefully completed review by next week. So it's a really quick turnaround because the budget for the grant is being utilized under this current fiscal year. And then there is already a dedicated fund for the next fiscal year for the grant program. I wanted to bring forth that I have dedicated budget for traveling expenses for commissioners to go attend the APA conference this year. I would need to know who would be interested in going because I need to reserve hotels and travel. And it will be The conference is September 20th till the 22nd, which is Wednesday through Friday. If you can let me know that you're interested in going tentatively so I can kind of anticipate, I will email you with the final date of when I need to know it by, and that will be held in Anchorage. And then the next meeting, just kind of jumping ahead a little quick, I want to give you a heads up that we'll have a work session. So please be aware that we're going to have a work session on June 28th. Dinner will be provided, so you can come early and have a meal beforehand, and we'll still have a public hearing as well. And then I want to jump into the memo that you received in your laydown. I will say that I am grateful for my new admin assistant because this was a lot to go through to get this list and review every annual report that the city has received. Just to go through a rundown of what a CUP annual report entails. According to our ordinance, we require every permit holder to submit an annual report between October 1st until December 31st, which may include the annual report form that we have online, as well as your sales tax compliance certification, which the borough verifies that you are not in depth and you're up to speed on everything in your state of Alaska business license. The intent of it is to describe your on-site activity, and this is where staff can evaluate, hey, are you doing what you were allowed, or are you doing more than what you're allowed? And this is where staff will say, hey, you need an amendment, or maybe ownership has changed, you need to do a transfer. This is I think the intent of why we had required an annual report. So in summary, for 2022 compliance, this is just what we received. This is not a full list of what has been approved. There could be some missing, and I can tell you right now, out of the list, I am aware of a couple of CUPs that are not on this list that are off Angler Drive. So this is just what we received. I kind of will rely on your commission as well to review this list. If you're aware of any CUPs that are not on here that you know are still operating, to put it on our radar. I will be having the assistant to go over the last 3 years of CUP resolution to make sure Elise is capturing any recent ones that weren't on this list. So 68 reports were submitted. 3 are incomplete, just missing maybe a sales tax certificate or state business, or they didn't fill it out completely, which I think is a successful rate out of 68. Only 3 are incomplete. Code requires that we notify them in writing of what's required. In addition, once we notify them, that we let you as your commission know as well what's going on. And then it is in your purview if staff comes back and say, hey, some of these people are refusing to submit, or, you know, we told them that they need to do an amendment and they don't, given reasonable time. It is within your purview as the commission to revoke their permit. I want to remind you of that. Like, they have an obligation. They're supposed to meet it, whether they don't pay their taxes or whatnot, or they don't comply with their conditions of approval, and staff does investigation or determine based on this annual report, it is in your purview to revoke any permits. Any questions on that? Any questions about the list? I think this is maybe a first time you've seen a captured list of everything we have, so I'm excited to share that with you. We are cleaning it up more. Our next step is to go through all these resolutions and see what kind of conditions and outline it, like fire inspection, so that we can stay current on fire inspections. So as staff, we're working on streamlining a lot of stuff and staying on top of it. And that concludes staff's administration's report. Happy to answer any question.
Vice Chair Halstead.
Question, in going through this list, how many of these did you find that were invalid, or ones that you, I guess, for lack of a better term, cleaned up?
Ms. Mitchell.
Thank you, Chair Dwight. Vice Chair Halstead. I would say 4 or 5 where they didn't operate last year, and then to me you saw some time extensions. What other stuff that I've seen? I would say at least 5, but it's not to say that those are the only ones that are operating. It's hard to not have a a complete list to work off of. So I'm kind of just picking what I have, starting with what I receive as the basis, and now going backwards of the last few years, what resolutions. But most people are in compliant, but I know there are others that we're aware that are not compliant, and I can assure you that we are working to come up with some solutions with legal.
Thank you.
Any other questions? And I think the food drive thing's pretty self-explanatory, I would guess, huh? If you wanna- Okay. All right, then we will move on. Our next meeting is on the 28th. Expect to see everybody here. Oh, Vice Chair Halsted says no.
Yeah, so every year we do our veteran group through Have Alaska, and that is the week that they'll be here. So I am early in the morning to late at night with these guys, so I will not make it. But there is a community barbecue that we do. It is in Soldotna, so if you guys can make the trip over on Wednesday, June 28th.
Where are you doing
It is at Fish Magnet. I don't know if you guys are familiar with that, which is down Big Eddy Road. Or, I'm sorry, Big Eddy.
Yeah, yep.
Big Eddy. So it is an opportunity to come meet the gentleman that we are able to get here. And this week, or this year, we were able to do 2 groups of veterans. So we were very, very
All right,
successful.
well, then I won't be at the meeting either, then 28th. I'm gonna be there, so. All right, okay, so then, other than Vice Chair Halsted, everybody looks like they unregrettably will be here. Commissioners' comments and questions. Commissioner Glenn Denning.
Thank you. Thanks, Joe, for your efforts. I've experienced several of your events, and they're well managed and well focused and well received, and it's something that's vital, necessary, and welcome in our community. Thank you for doing that. And you weren't influenced in any way by that, were you?
Well, you know what? I forgot additional public comments. I sure did, so I'm gonna back everything all up. Anyone else that wants to come forward for anything else additionally? You know, I'd like to think I have. All right, carry on.
Okay, I was going to mention it, but I didn't want to embarrass you.
Well, you know, not much does.
You know me.
Not much does.
Yeah, and again, thanks, Henry, for coming by and giving your thorough and verbose comments, and it's good to have insights as to what's going on in our Big Brother's body, and it keeps us informed as to what's going on, and I know if anything's involving planning and zoning issues, whoever sits in that chair will advise us of a heads up, or through our administrator, the planning and zoning director. And so far, we're having a good year and nice group, and I'm pleased to be part of it. And that's it. Thank you.
All right, Commissioner Woodard.
Assemblymember Cox is up for re-election.
Yes, he is.
And if you know anybody that would run against him, that would be wonderful. Encourage them.
He is terming out, I believe.
Commissioner Costin.
I find it kind of curious. We have 8 marijuana operations and 8 gravel pits. in the conditional use permit. I don't know where the balance is gonna shift now next year, or what's gonna happen there, but,
There's a gunsmithing in there too.
yeah.
It's in code, there's a ratio.
Vice Chair Halsted.
Nothing more for me. Thank you.
All right, Commissioner Greenberg.
I don't have anything, thanks.
All right, Commissioner Fikes.
Thank you. This is well-needed information, very useful tool, so it's nice to see all this coalesced and put together the way you guys did. This is, I know, time-consuming, but it's actually very crucial and beneficial for us here on the commission to have a one-spot look to see what's going on and whether we've had an issue in the past or going forward, maybe.
All right, and I will just say that there's a work getting done on the dog park. They brought in a bunch of topsoil, and they're placing some benches around there. We worked on the pavilion, got that closer to being done. So I would guess that thing will actually, there'll be some fencing put up, I would assume, pretty shortly, and it looks like it actually, the vision will come to completion sometime this year, hopefully. So I don't know as far as that phase, there's probably electrical and things like that that'll be down the line a little bit, so there's some lighting in there. But anyway, it's getting closer, and that'll be kind of nice. Working over there, I was surprised how many people that walk around the trail around the lake there with their dogs already. It's pretty well attended, so it'll be a pretty neat little deal. So, I don't even know if I have anything else to say, because I think that everything else is done. So, with all the business complete, the meeting is adjourned. I have to have a hard copy. That's my problem. This thing is no good.
You're recording yourself there, Jeff.